All right. We have the Measure R discussion. Speaking in favor of Measure R will be Frank Barragan, and speaking in favor and speaking against Measure R will be Councilmember John Freeman. We will just jump right into our first question, and that is, how does Measure R protect the existing residents and workers within the 3.5-mile buffer zone? We will begin with Mr. Barragan. We will have 1 minute for this question response period.
So we're not going to have an opening statement?
No, thank you. No.
No. Okay. So yes on R, it places a 3.5 mile health and safety buffer zone around Tri-Cal, which was strategically planned over 40 years ago to place it away from urban development. As we know, when you have urban development next to a hazardous chemical plant, you expose children, families, and workers out there. And right now the plan is to put about 5,000 workers out there and other developments that could happen. So what Measure R does, it puts 3.5 mile buffer zone around Tri-Cal, which was originally in the general plan. However, the county supervisors were afraid of a lawsuit by the current landowners and the developers at that time. Everyone knows they were trying to build a city out there, and at that time they were threatening to sue the county. So the county backed out of it, and they didn't put the 3.5 mile buffer zone. Later on, when Strata Verde came out to try to develop out there, the county actually hired 3 county experts, and they all said they had to have a safety buffer zone out there. Tri-Cal also agreed that you cannot have people out there near a hazardous chemical company.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Barragan. We will now have Mr. Freeman.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruno, for having this forum. I'd like to introduce myself as John Freeman, and I am a 16-year member of the Bay Area Environmental Health and Safety Group, as well as being a city council person. So that gives me, and I worked at Romick Environmental Technologies for almost 12 years in East Palo Alto, and we had more flammable substances than Tri-Cal ever dreamed of having. And if we had a 3.5 mile buffer zone, that would take out Stanford, Palo Alto, Menlo Park, Google, Mountain View. So let's face it, this is not serious. This is just an ordinance aimed at one business, Strata Verde, because he has a competitor who wants to do a similar thing somewhere else, and it might hurt him. I would say no. If he's really serious, 2 businesses can exist. I'll tell you, Intel and AMD exist within a mile of each other, and they both do fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Question 2. Tri-Cal has been operating for 40 years without a serious incident. Why would McGuire Builders in Southern California spend almost $50,000 to establish a buffer? We will begin with Mr. Freeman with 1 minute.
Thank you. The only thing I can think of is that this builder is going to eventually try and buy the Strata Verde property. It will eventually push out Tri-Cal, buy them out, and then you'll have what everyone doesn't want, which is wall-to-wall housing. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Mr. Barragan.
Question would have also stated that the Strata Verde developers have spent over $700,000 in going against Measure Q and R, and they've also spent over $2 million on Measure N, which they lost by 60% of the residents who did not want this development. However, we already know that we've had 3 county experts say that we should not be developing near a chemical plant, and this would stop all development. I know Mr. Freeman over here would like to say that I'm working for a developer. He's completely wrong. And he's getting that from Anthony Battaglia, who we know now, who fought against Measure N and was trying to push this, and now he's getting paid by the developer to work for them.
Thank you.
Do I get to reply to that?
Thank you.
Okay.
We have candidate response time right now. We will begin with Mr. Barragan for this, and then we'll move to Mr. Freeman.
I think I've already answered Mr. Freeman's allegations, false allegations.
Thank you.
you.
I don't think they're false.
Where are the facts?
Well, the fact is that you don't
There's
have.
no facts.
Frank, thank you. Let me speak. Okay, so number one, no one's paying me. I've received no money from anybody. Strata Verde hasn't even purchased me a lunch, so I feel that I'm with the clean hands up here. Yes, I am friends with Anthony Botello. You should all be friends with Anthony. He's a good guy. Yes, he's in favor of Strata Verde, so am I. Big picture, we need the tax money that Strata Verde will provide, okay? 2 weeks ago, Channel 8 News was out at the San Juan Padre School talking about the lack of AC. $8 million a year in property taxes will buy a lot of air conditioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. We're now moving on to closing statements, starting with Mr. Freeman.
Oh, okay, thank you. It's my opinion that a law written against one company is always a very bad idea, okay? And it comes to bite you in the rear end later on somehow down the road. If Tri-Cal is a problem, you can go to the DTSC website and see if there's any NOVs against them. There is not. I've done that homework already for you. You don't have to. And so they're running a safe operation. No on R. This is just Frank's manipulation of things to get his way for more housing in northern San Benito County, where it's not needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Mr. Barragan, 30 seconds to respond.
So they talk about Strata Verde and all the marketing material you guys have all received at your house. It states that they're going to be generating $14 million, but the county actually did its own assessment, and it's actually $847,000 to $1.4 million. They've also said that they would build a fire station out there, but how much would a fire station cost? $4 million to run it? So where are those extra tax dollars going to come from if they're only going to generate $847,000 to 1.4? It's going to come out of your tax dollars, meaning there's not going to be infrastructure for Hollister, San Juan, and other areas in San Juan Bautista, like San Juan Bautista. There's not going to be for Bitterwater, Jefferson, and all the rural areas in our county.
Thank you, Mr. Barragan. Thank you, speakers, for speaking on Measure R.